Hey, what's going on, everybody? Bauer Brown here. Welcome back to the channel, guys, and welcome to video number 5 in the Spline Street Constructor video tutorial series. I think this may be the 5th and final video. We'll see. As things come up, I just may keep adding additional episodes to the series. We'll see what happens. But for now, in this episode, we are going to go over kind of wrap things up. We're going to review a few things and see if maybe we can't do one more road, see what becomes of that. Maybe tackle a few more issues as they come up and show you guys how to deal with those sorts of things. Okay. All right. So since the last video, I had went ahead and I think I created, well, I definitely created another spline, as you can see here. All right. I laid that one down. All right. Now I didn't run it through the CSV creator or anything like that as of yet, right? I created one more intersection on the other side of this bridge and put that down. Not quite sure if I want to run the road across that bridge or not. Probably not. I think I'm just going to stop short. But from here, let's quickly run this road. All right. And we'll see what we get. We'll see what our data looks like, and we'll take it from there. All right. Before I get into that, Crossing Constructor, one thing that has come up, there's been a few people now that have been asking how to create a 4-way intersection. And I know I've gone over this, but maybe it was just missed in one of the videos. All right, right here where you see this Winkel, it means angle. All right, so pick your angle, pick your radius. Now these will be the branches of your intersection. Okay. Now remember, when we do the intersection, when you're looking at an intersection here, all right, you're always working clockwise. Okay. So when you're working out your angles, all right, let me get my pencil here. You'll start at like right here. Let's pretend there's a 4th intersection right here. Okay. A 4th branch. So we got 1, 2, 3, and 4. All right. So starting out we're not going clockwise. We're going counterclockwise. All right. So our first intersection would be here at 90 degrees. Okay. Now our second intersection, we want to go 90 more degrees, all right, to get to that top. All right. Third intersection, again, we're going to go an additional 90 degrees. And the last one gets auto-populated for you, okay? And that's usually the spot where you're standing. All right. So, and in this case, you can only work with 360 degrees. So when you add them all up, that basically would complete the 360, an additional 90 degrees. Okay. So I believe up to this point, you have what, 270. All right. Would that be right? Not sure. My brain's not working right now. All right. So let me get off of here. All right. Let me show you what we got now. Let me minimize this. All right. So when you're in the Crossing Constructor here, remember, 90 for your first stop, counterclockwise, 90 for your second stop. Click this button right here, this checkbox. You want to check that. That will give you the additional angles. All right. So you can do up to 6. And by checking this box, this reveals the other 3. Now you can see without this checked, I have 90 and 90, which equals 180. And it made my last stop up here. It says 180. All right. Because it needs to equal 360 in total. If 360 degrees complete, we only used 180 of them, so it made our last stop at 180. All right, so by checking this box right here, we can put in our third angle of 90 degrees, right? And you can see it auto-populated our last stop at 90 degrees, right? So 90, 90, 90, we use 270. And is that right? Yeah, that's right. And it auto-populated the last stop for us at 90 degrees to complete that 360. So you really only need to do, when you're doing a 4-way intersection, is designate your first 3 stops, 1, 2, and 3, and it will fill the last one in for you. All right. So like I said, I went ahead and I ran the spline. Now, looking at the spline that we have here, this one if it's going to create a problem, it's going to do it here. Okay. We got this slight angle here, as you can see, where we start kind of heading into a different direction before we take a hard 90 up in here and then head on over towards that bridge down there. All right. Now this road here, same as the last one, it's pretty crazy. It's got a lot of dips and turns and, elevation changes and that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and run the road on this one and see what we get for a data set and see what that looks like. All right, now at this point here, like I said, with the intersections being done and the original spline. Now, when I say the original spline, that's the spline we're looking at here. When I laid this down, I didn't pay any attention to my control vertexes or how closely together they were, or if I was following the contours of the ground or anything like that. All I did was just make sure it was lined up with my roadway itself. I did that knowing that I was going to put it through the Spline CSV creator. Okay, so with the Spline CSV creator, that's optional. All right, you don't have to put it through there. You need to keep in mind that the advantage of using a CSV creator is your spline can be laid down much quicker. You can just kind of lay it down. You don't have to, pay particular attention to anything but where the spline is being laid down. Not if it's, conforming to the contours, of the terrain or anything like that. All right. So that's the advantage. The disadvantage of using that is it's going to pick up every single bump and divot and everything that, any deficiencies in the roadway, right? Anything that's, if it's not flat, it's going to pick that up. All right. So from there, like I said, you have options, either use it or don't. If you choose not to use it, when you come through to lay down this original spline, you want to keep your control vertexes fairly close together. Remember that if you opt to smooth out your roadway, right, using the terrain height tool, all right, it's going to follow your spline. So you can go longer distances, just know, that you may be cutting through a high spot or, creating a low spot inadvertently by doing that. So just keep that in mind with that spline. But that's not a bad way to do it. That's the way I've done it for years because the CSV creator didn't exist at that point. So I would run my spline by hand. And once I was done, I would just kind of smooth everything out and I would go from there. All right. So remember, that is optional. The CSV creator is optional. But for now, that's exactly what I'm going to do. I'm going to go ahead and find that spline. Let's see what I did with it. All right, right here. So I am going to go to CSV creator setup. All right, I have that pre-populated that all I need to do is just run it. Go ahead and do that. Okay, let me go ahead and find that now. Not even in the right folder. Let's go to mods, tutorial series, CSV data, and we'll pull that into the map. Very good. Okay, and I'm going to move that up top here. Delete the original. I'm going to rename the new spline. And I'm only renaming this because I am using the 1.3 version of the spline tools, of the placement tools. All right. And that version wants it to say spline. All right. If you're using the Farmer Boys version, you can have it. You can keep it just the way that it was. All right. So you can already see with this, the new spline, you can see, the bumps and you can see that, it definitely has a bit of a different shape to it, right? Because now it conforms to the terrain itself. All right. So with that, all we have left to do is we're going to go up to spline placement and we're going to lay down. Oh, actually, no, I'm skipping a step here. I go to terrain height. So let's go to terrain height setup. Actually, let me go into my spline and try that. All right, so terrain height setup, I'm going to go with a center width of 8, and I'm going to keep my spline height at 0. And what that does is it gives me 8 meters wide, and it brings the height of the ground up to my spline, right? So it doesn't go above the spline. It doesn't go anywhere, below the spline. It brings it right up to where the spline is at, and it just flattens everything out within an 8 meter width. All right. And that's why I said if you use the CSV, because you see how the CSV, if there's any kind of bumps or anything in this road, the spline is following them. Now, one thing you could do to get around some of that, right, is increase when you're in the spline and you do your creator setup, spline CSV creator setup. All right. This 5 here for the CSV distance, you can increase that number to make your spline points a little bit further apart. And then it'll actually smooth out your road a little bit more. All right. And the only way it does that is it skips over, like say if in between these two spline points, there's a bump here, it's not going to know it. All right. It's just going to go 5 meters later. It's going to take a sample, 5 meters, 5 meters. It's going to take a sample every 5 meters. All right. And it's just kind of connect the dots from there. All right. So you can increase that a little bit, but you also need to watch because when you get into hills and stuff like that, it's, you're going to start cutting through hills a little bit more than you normally would. All right, but 5 seems to be a good value. It works for me, and I'm going to keep it just where it's at, right? So it looks pretty good. Let's go up to spline placement. All right, and from here, I'm going to run the actual script, the version 1.3, the spline placement execute. So I'm going to run that, and that's going to lay down. It's going to lay down all of our little post objects there. Okay. And from here, I'm just going to line those up like I normally would. It's a pretty big dip right here. Okay, we're going to bring that over. I'm going to highlight my Y, my translate Y, and bring that down. So it meets up with my roadway down here. You can see that's going down a pretty good distance there. So I want to pay attention to that because from this post here to this post here, it's going to take a much sharper dip than it does with the rest of these. All right, so from post to post to post. What I could do is delete this post here, and now it's from here to here, from this post to this post, which will lessen it a little bit. It's basically still the same amount of distance it's covering on the way down. It's just doing it over a much longer area. Your other options here are to come back with your terrain tool and start like smoothing this out, maybe taking away a little bit and not having such a steep hill there. All right. I didn't actually run my smoothing tool yet, did I? I don't think I did. I think I might have brain farted on that one. How about that? All right, let's get rid of these objects really quick because I can't be sure if I ran that or not. I do recall that every time I've been running this tool on the Farmer Boys version, it's been taking quite a while. So I'm actually going to bypass that one this time. So let me delete these objects. All right. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to highlight the spline, go up to scripts. Which one did I use here? Newest terrain height by spline. All right, let's check the script editor and see which one I have set up here. All right, I have edge width, side count, so it doesn't look like that one. Okay, it looks like just set terrain height by spline. So we're going to go ahead and just execute that one. All right, you can see how much quicker that went. All right, so that one's done already. I'm not sure what was going on with Farmer Boys there. It was taking quite a while to get that done. All right, so now that I got that done, I can go ahead and run that, lay down our posts again. I can run the execute. All right, so let's do that. There we go. All right, now I have to go through this again and drop this post down. So it meets our intersection here. Okay. Leave that there. I'm going to go ahead and delete that post to try to make it so it's not such a steep drop. Like I said, it still covers the same distance, as far as the drop goes. It's just not such a sharp drop. All right. And then this one here, I think I'm just going to run it up kind of to the end of the bridge, sort of somewhere in here and just kind of leave it at that. I'm not going to get too crazy here. So I wasn't quite sure what I wanted to do with this to begin with. This isn't a typical setup for a wooden bridge. I wouldn't normally run the road across the bridge. But I don't know. I have this railing going on there. Things are just, I don't know. Needs a little bit of work in that area. That's for sure. All right. So anyhow, we got the post laid down. From here, we're just going to export and see what our data set looks like. I already know that this, mostly because of this 90-degree angle up here, that this is probably going to be need to be done in more than one section. All right. I can kind of tell that right off the bat. But let's see what we get. All right. So let's get up here to Placed objects, we're going to go to File and Export. Okay, let's go to Export Selection. We are in Tutorial Series, Objects, Roads, Placed Objects. Okay, save that. Oh boy, I don't even have my my editor open. I am slacking here. All right, now I'm not sure if this is the... it must be the right one. Okay, these are all showing 180s. I'd imagine somewhere in here it's going to skip over to zeros because it changes direction. All right, we got this chunk right there in the middle. This kind of looks like the last one that I did for some reason. All right, I'm going to open that file again just to make sure I got the right one. So let's go to Open and find out. Go to Mods, Tutorial Series, Objects, Roads, Placed Objects. It looks pretty much the same. All right, so from here, I guess we could, what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to take these 180s here in the middle. Use Control H. All right. Make sure Match Whole World Only is selected. In selection is selected. 180 replace with 0. Going to replace all. Okay, and then I'm going to take the rest of these 180s here, and I'm going to delete them. Like so. Delete. All right. All right. I should say that looks pretty good. Okay, I'm happy with that. Control S, we'll save it. We'll go into our Street Constructor import. Replaced objects. 571 spline points. I can't remember if I had to reload my crossing constructor or my street constructor, so I can't remember if I was at 7 meters or 7.5. Let's try 7, see what we get here. So let's click go. Okay, so it ran it. That's a good sign. Okay, get back over into objects, roads. Okay, let's import that and see what we get. All right. So let's see here. Okay, I must have missed something there. I missed maybe a 180 I missed because it flipped over on itself. All right, so we'll go back and have a look at that and see what got missed there. I'm going to have to clean off the rest of this just so I can see what the roadway itself looks like. All right, let's start by cleaning it. Oops, whoa, what did I do there? Scene graph, I moved. Oh, it's going to be that kind of day. I can tell. All right, let's start cleaning up this roadway here. Just so I can tell what's going on underneath it. No surprises or anything like that. You do need to be careful about that because sometimes underneath the roadway, you know, if you leave all this stuff on here and you say, just come back to it later. By the time you come back to it, sometimes you notice that, you know, maybe the road is doing something you don't want it to do underneath there. And it's better to just address these problems now while we're working with this current data set. All right. So far, it looks pretty good. And running this in 2 sections really isn't causing much of an issue, right? This goes pretty easy. All right, so right there, I'm kind of thinking I just missed one of the 180s. And the road here looks like it has some dips in it. All right, so let's have a look at that. It's kind of the same situation we came across last time where the road started stepping down on us. All right. And I'll show you how to go ahead and take care of that. We did it last time by changing a couple of our values. That's the part that I want to go over again. All right. So from here, let's get back into the data set. All right. I'm going to actually just delete everything that's here right now because I'm going to rerun this. So let's delete that. Look at our data set and see what I missed here. Yep, here's the two 180s right here that I missed. See, it's really easy to tell. You know, it's not a very complicated process. You know, you see that your road turned over on itself. It's obvious that I missed something. All right, so I just replace all, and that should run okay. Now, the only thing left is those steps here. All right, let me hit Control Save on this, get back into our Street Constructor, re-import that data set. All right, placed objects like so. Okay, so last time we had that stepping down motion, right? We went up here to this. We're going to try one or the other this time. Last time I changed the minimal angle and the minimum bending, but I think it's just the minimum bending. If not, we'll come back and try the angle. And what I did is I bumped that up to 45. Now, 45 is as high as you ever want to go with that number. Okay, when you start going higher, the road starts getting skinnier. All right, it's weird, but it happens. Now, I don't recommend going right up to 45 because you could be inadvertently affecting other areas, right, that you don't want to. We only want this to affect the area where we're having a problem. So what I like to do is I like to go much smaller. Like, let's go to, normally I have a 10 is my value. Let's just go with 20, okay, and see if 20 smooths that out. If it doesn't, we'll just keep bumping it up until we get a nice smooth road, right? Without exceeding 45. So let's just stick with 20 for now. Okay, we're going to run this again. Back inside of here, let's drag it in, see what we got. Completed road. All right, now. Okay, so you can see our steps are kind of still there. All right, we fixed the 180, so that's not turning over on itself anymore. But this stepping effect is still there. This is what we're trying to smooth out because that really doesn't look so great. All right, so let's try to bump up that value a little bit more. Let's delete this. There we go. All right, back into the Street Constructor, go back into our settings, bump that up to 30. Okay. And we may very well end up back at 45. It just kind of is what it is. I do have a lot of luck, though, by going back, and sometimes I only have to bump it up by like 5 or 10 degrees, and that's enough to kind of smooth it out. And it could very well be that the bending is not what I need to be doing. Maybe it's the angle. If I have no change in here, I'm going to go back to my original number and I'm going to add to the angle. All right, so let's have a look and see what we got. Completed road. Okay, it's still there. Doesn't look any different to me at all. Okay, that looks very much the same. Let's delete that. Back into the Street Constructor. Okay, bring my settings up. I'm going to put this back at 10. And the minimal angle, I'm going to move up to 20. Okay, let's click OK. Run it one more time. And re-import that section. Well, I mean, by sometimes it's experimentation. Okay, now you can see immediately that's way better. All right, so it's the angle that did that for us, right? And that's all about the subdivision. The way that it was subdividing, it just wasn't going so well there. Okay, so from there, I went up to 20. I could actually, if you want, like I said, you don't want that value to be, you want to keep that value as small as you can. All right, so 20 is kind of high. I can bump that down to 10, 15, somewhere in there, right? And see if it stays smooth the way I want it to. All right. So it looks good. You know, it doesn't seem to have affected the roadway negatively in any other areas. Okay, all the way up here to the end. That kind of comes into the bridge at a really weird angle. Doesn't look so great there, but I bet something that could be addressed in the future. I could either run this spline again or just do something differently with the roadway in that area. That definitely doesn't look so great, but this is only a tutorial video, right? This is only for demonstration purposes, so I'm not gonna concern myself with that right now. We're just gonna go ahead and we're gonna complete the other side of this roadway. All right, so from here, let's get these. We'll hide these two splines. Hide those. All right, and we are going to put this in a group and call it RD4A. All right, so from here, let's figure out which direction this roadway is going. All right, so I want to delete everything from here down. Like so. Delete that. Actually, you know what? I need to reverse this spline because these were 180s. All right, so we're going to have to run this. Actually, we're going to have to delete everything and reverse the spline. That's the part that I forgot last time. All right, spline placement, delete. Okay, let's try that again, except this time actually be on spline placement. All right. There we go. Now we're going to go to the spline. We're going to hit R for Romeo to reverse the spline. Back up the spline placement, scripts. We're going to go down to execute, lay down our object once again. Okay. And same thing. We're going to go from here. This time we need to go up. We're going to delete everything from there up. Like so. Delete that. Move this post to where I want it. Hit E a couple of times because my gizmo is a little goofed up. Okay. Translate Y, bring that down to my road surface. That's good. Fix the other end where it comes into the intersection. Okay, same thing here with translate Y. I'm going to bring that up. There we go. I'm going to delete this post here. Like I said, you could come back with your terrain sculpt mode with your brush and kind of smooth this out if you want. You can use the spline if you want, and just kind of make it a more gradual dip there than what we have. But for now, like I said, just for the sake of the tutorial and demonstration purposes, I think that's going to work okay. All right, so placed objects, we're going to go up to File. We're going to export selection, placed objects, save, yes. All right, go back into our text editor. Let's have a look at it. Okay, and this time I want to make sure I don't have things like this 180 here, right? That I'm not leaving any of those behind because like last time, the road will turn over on itself. It's not hard to do. All right, so quickly kind of scroll through the list, make sure we don't have any more. Looks pretty good. Control S to save. Back into our street constructor. Re-import placed objects. There we go. All right, let's run it. And re-import that stretch of the roadway. Like so. All right, now we're just going to clean it off real quick. See what we have here. Okay, so by the looks of it, it's just the angle is off a little bit, the way that the road actually comes into the intersection. So things need to be adjusted slightly. And in this event, like I said, you're going to end up probably running your spline again because I can't really move the intersection at this point. The road actually I can move. I can move the road if I needed to. It just doesn't look like in this case it's going to I'm going to be able to move it in any direction that's going to make this line up better, because this side here barely lines up, right? So if I move it any more to the left, this side won't line up and this side will. It actually looks like an elevation issue. Like maybe that's too far over the intersection. So this could be fixed. It looks like I just went too far into the intersection with that post. All right. So I just need to clean up that edge a little bit. So it would take rerunning this again, maybe multiple times to get that sorted out. Like I said, I'm not going to do that in this video because that's not necessarily what this video is about. We just want to go over data sets and, fixing our numbers and, getting our roadway to look okay. All right. So everything else looks good. It lined up perfectly on this side. So I wouldn't want to move the road in any case because this looks darn good right here. All right. So everything looks really, really good. All right. So from there, all I would do is just, like I said, I would hide these splines again. Actually, I'm going to keep these splines. I'm going to keep those the way they are. And I'm going to go back to the RD4A. And I'm going to let those splines show as well. Right. So we're going to. All right. Now, let me get rid of the posts that I have here so we can see what's going on. Go up to spline placement, delete. So. Okay. And we're going to hide this spline. Remember to keep that extra transform group there. Right. That you keep all of your splines inside of in case you ever need to come back and do some more work that requires the spline. You're going to want that. You're going to be very happy that you actually saved all those. All right. So now when you set this up for your traffic system, okay. All right. You have two splines here. That's wonderful that you have them. I mean, it's awesome. This is something that you're not going to have to, it's going to save you a lot of time because you're not going to have to come back at a later date and run each one of these splines up each side of the road. Amazing. It's definitely a time saver. All right. So we got a spline right. All right. And that one looks like it's going in the right direction, and a spline left, which is not going in the right direction. So we want to hit R for Romeo, and we want to reverse that. Remember, start, being up right here where we're standing, and then end being way up there. The cars travel in a direction from start to end. Okay. So that's the direction they're traveling in the US. That would be correct. And other parts of the world. All right. So this just came up recently when you get these two sections here. So now you have two different splines. Okay. So let's look at the other spline. Okay. And that's also in the same direction. So we don't really have to do much from there. What we do need to do. So let's click on that spline. All right. Get my gizmo straightened out. Now I'm going to Control B. And I'm just going to snap it. See how it snaps into place when I get close? Oops. Control B again. Let's move that around. And as I get close to the end of that spline, see how it just snapped into there? That's what I want to do. You're not really joining these splines in any way. If you go back to my video that I did all about splines, it shows you how to do that snapping effect there. And it's just hitting Control B, getting close to the other spline point, and it will line them up perfectly. Okay, now you still have two different splines here. All right, so in the end, it's still two different splines, but they're lined up just perfectly. So the end point wants to be lined up with the starting point, right? So you're ending and then starting again and keep going in the same direction, okay? So that's how you get that to work as one spline when you do your traffic system. Your traffic system will recognize this, no problem. Everything will be A-okay. All right, so let's get into this next spline that we have here. That is not correct. We need to reverse that. So that needs to be, see what happened there. There we go. So that needs to be the endpoint. Let's check the other one. Okay, so that part is correct. So same thing here. We just want to get down to highlight that spline, Control B, and you can see look how far away I am, and it just snaps back over top of that. See how far I can travel away from it before it actually pulls it away. There you go. And those are lined up just perfect. So now when you come back and you do your traffic system, those two splines are absolutely perfect. All right. Now, the unfortunate part is, like, let's say this here was another road. All right. And you wanted to put traffic system on here. There really is no way to break this spline. What you would normally do is you would highlight the spline that you want to work with here. All right. And you would duplicate it. So I would duplicate this spline, and then I would delete all my spline points up to one section here. And then I would go on the other spline, right, the one that I copied from, and I would delete everything up to this point. So you would have this open section here that you could, have some turns that join into your original traffic system. All right. Somewhere along the way, either somebody smarter than me, hopefully, I've had it in the back of my mind. It's a pet project I want to do, is to create a script that will break a spline for us. So it comes in really handy at some point where, if you were able to break a spline to do whatever you want to do with it, you can join them easily enough. You just can't break them. All right. But that's what you would do, right? So if you had an intersection in there somewhere, if you added one later on, you would just duplicate that spline and then delete the points yourself. Okay. That was pretty much it. So that one really didn't go too bad. We had that stepping motion again, or that stepping effect. All right. So you can see how we were able to bypass that. That was by going into settings and increasing this angle here. Okay. And that I normally kept at 5. Now, normally I wouldn't shoot such a big jump. I would go incrementally. I would go maybe up to 10. I would try that. And if I got rid of it, great. If it didn't, then I would go up to 15, 20. I wouldn't, you want to keep that number as low as you can. Okay. And the way that it affects that is, when you look at, let's see if I can find a good spot here for me to show you what I want to talk about here. All right. Now, the way when this does, when you're looking at in the street constructor, when you're in the settings and it's asking you for that angle, okay, it's the amount of degrees. So if you look at the roadway here, like if this is the ground level, that would be just a flat plane, not so flat the way I drew it, but it will be flat. All right. So when you have a hill that, say, comes up this way, all right, now it's asking you, or you're telling it with those degrees, the way it's set up now, I have it set on 5, right? So you're telling it that this angle here, this roadway here, anything above 5 degrees of angle, I want you to, you're telling it that anything of above 5 degrees of angle, you basically want to like restructure. All right. You want to subdivide. All right. And what the subdividing is the longer you have that subdivision length. All right. So let's look at this again. Let's go back to Street Constructor here. All right. We have in settings, I have my minimum length of 2 meters. All right. And that's the length of the subdivision. Now, normally you want to keep that 1 or 2. 1 is a pretty good number in itself. All right. So you're subdividing into 1 meter increments or 2 meter increments at this point. All right. So if you had this longer, let's say 10 or 15, all right, when it subdivides, what it would look like is that same nice slope. It would have more of a straight line look to it, like so. So they would be, just straighter lines, like a bigger section like this, and it wouldn't look so good, right? So it'd be kind of clunky. Whereas if you go with smaller sections, like a 1 meter section, you're subdividing into only 1 meter sections. Okay. So which gives you a nice smooth angle here. All right. So the bigger you have that minimum length, the clunkier it's going to start to look on your subdivision, right? For your minimal length. All right. So what we were telling that, is anything above a 5 meter slope, with this slope here, if it exceeds 5 meters, I want you to start subdividing into those 1 foot sections, okay, or the 1 meter sections. Now, what we did is by increasing that number, right, we told it now anything above 10, anything above a 10 degree slope, I want you to start subdividing. So it won't even care about that 5 degree slope anymore. It won't do anything until it hits 11 degrees or 10.1, right? Anything over 10 degrees, that's when it'll start subdividing. Okay, so you want to be careful with that too. You don't want to go too high because let's say like a 30 degree slope, which is a pretty decent slope. And if you're up at 45 with that setting at 45 degrees, you're telling it don't subdivide anything unless it exceeds 45 degrees. Well, that 30-degree slope is not going to be subdivided for you, which is going to look kind of not good. It can get really clunky. It can get really just not such a good look to it because it needs to subdivide this slope, right? If not, like I said, you're going to get that, that kind of look to it that has that, like a longer, straighter edges where it just doesn't look good. They even get that stepping effect to it, right? That's kind of what we got there. So that's what we're telling it. We're increasing that number a little bit only because the subdivision is what was creating that problem, that stepping effect. So we just increased the angle a little bit and told it don't even try to subdivide right there. But you need to be careful with that. I know that's a little bit confusing, but you need to be careful because it's not just the affected section, right? Maybe where this is where it was stepping by increasing, our slope angle and telling it, not to subdivide. So we're fixing that, but it's also not subdividing other areas that it should be. All right. So that's why I said to keep this number, this 45, that's the maximum that you should be going on the bending or the angle. Right. And we used angle this time. It was angle that fixed that. All right. So that's why you want to keep that number as low as possible because it affects this slope, and the subdivision in that slope. That's what makes it nice and smooth and keeps your roads looking good. So you don't want to have that number way up there because it could definitely affect things. All right. What else? Do we have anything else in there that we needed to go over? I want to say that was pretty much it. Everything looked pretty good. Remember this texture width here. You don't really need that unless you plan on using the begin and end. I'm not going to go over that now. That's something you can go back and watch the earlier videos to figure out what those did, right? As far as your textures, kind of like UV mapping, sort of. We're telling it what part of the texture we want to use. Okay. And from there, everything else should be pretty self-explanatory. Like I said, I can't encourage you enough, to go through and experiment, start changing some of these, change some of these values, change some of these settings, see what it gives you, change your minimal length, change that up to like 10 or 15, run a roadway, see what it does. Change your minimal angle, drop that down low, raise it up high, see what you get. All of these answers that I'm able to give to you, like telling you that 45 is a maximum. Now you can exceed that, but like I said, your roadway is going to narrow down on itself. And it literally gets skinny. And what I mean by that is if you look at the roadway here, let's get my pencil tool back open. So if you look at a roadway, it would actually have, I am not on my pencil tool. It would do something like this where it would, up here you might be at like a 10-meter road, but it'll start getting skinny. So it might only be 3 meters, down here. And that's why I mean by it, the road gets skinny on itself. Not sure why it does that. Again, it has something to do with the subdivision, something with that setting. But you want to be careful of that, when you're messing with these numbers, because when you go above 45, that's when I noticed that. Or even approaching 45. It probably happens at close to 45. It's just so slight, you can't really tell. But anywhere over 45, you will definitely notice that. So, keep this angle and bending as low as you can. Even as minimal bending, I don't know why I have that at 10 degrees. I probably don't need it there. I can probably go a little bit lower. But it seems to be okay. Keeping it at 10 seems to be okay. So I haven't really noticed anything wrong with the roads that it creates with that setting. But like I said, this is where I encourage you to, go through and do some experimentation. Like I said, these last two, the Z rotation and the camber, those come into effect when under roadway here, when you have the track tricks. I'm not even sure what that means. And the fulcrum, again, 2 words that I have no clue what they mean, even in English. But when you start messing with these, that's where those 2 settings come into play. And the camber and stuff that has to do with the roadway. When you have a roadway, like say if it's making a corner, the way our roadway is, it would stay flat like so all the way around this corner. Okay. But when you have that camber and stuff, what it'll do is actually lift the roadway up a little bit. So instead of being flat, this side of the roadway is actually higher than the other side. All right. So pretty neat the way it does it, but it's not ideal under a lot of situations. I don't use it only because I've gotten some undesired results. Let's put it that way. And not everything turned out exactly the way I would have wanted it to. So I don't even mess with it. I just keep everything, nice and flat the way it is, just like you would expect a roadway to be. Now, if I was building a racetrack, maybe I would kind of goof around with that one a little bit. But outside of that, I'm pretty happy with what we have, and everything seems to work rather well. All right. Let's see. Does our corner look okay up here? Yes, our corner looks okay. So keep that in mind when you get into areas like this where you're going from a north-south orientation to an east-west orientation. That's when it's going to flip from 0 degrees to 180, and you're probably going to have to do that road in 2 different sections, just kind of the way it works out. And your road, you can make these roads as long as you want to. It just depends. Now, if you're doing a straight run, I've gone across 6-kilometer maps with no issues from one end to the other. Everything was fine, but that was a straight run. Okay. Now, when you start getting into stuff like this with elevation changes and directional changes, that's going to start affecting your data set, and you're going to have to clean that up a little bit and start running that road in multiple sections. All right. So outside of that, there's really not much else to the Spline Street Constructor. Hopefully that made some sense to you guys. Hopefully you have been playing with it and been making some decent looking roads, and everything's been working out for you. That was kind of the whole point behind all of this. And like I said, as of right now, I think this being video number 5 is probably going to be, at least for right now, it's going to be the last video in this series. I'm going to move on to other things. If in the future, working on any of my maps, I come across anything that I feel would be a good example for you guys to know about and to learn from, by all means, I will definitely make a video on that, and I will include a video number 6 somewhere down the line. But right now, tentatively at least, you can rest assured that this is probably going to be the last video for a little while until something else comes up. All right. And like I said, when that something does come up, I will, certainly make a video about it, and I will share it with these guys, and we can all learn together. Alrighty. So I'm going to leave it at that. If you guys have any questions, definitely feel free to hit me up in the comments. I've been, trying the best I can to keep up with any questions and make sure I get them all answered for you and help you guys in any way that I can. And that's it. Like I said, you find these videos helpful in any way, shape, or form, like, subscribe, helps me out a lot. It's been a very slow crawl to get to a bigger number. Not even sure we have a number in mind. I just want to kind of be able to help as many people as we can, because as a whole, the way I look at it is, and I truly feel that if you look at the mod hub, if you look at these mod sites, the quality of the maps and mods that are out there right now has, pardon my French, but it's gone to shit. It does not look good. We've got some really good ones, but we've got some really bad ones as well. I see a lot of people that are just getting into this, really only scratching the surface as far as what they need to know. They're putting mods out there that are just riddled with errors and faults and all sorts of things. And like I said, I hate to put it this way, but there's a lot of garbage out there right now. So my goal is to get this information out to as many people as we can, and hopefully everybody can learn from it. And, as an indirect or direct result, we start coming up with some better maps and some better mods, right? So people know a little bit more about what they're doing, or hopefully in most cases, a lot more about what they're doing. And like I said, you never know. Any one of you guys out there right now could be, the next great one, the next person that puts out the amazing map maker, so we just don't know. It's everybody starts somewhere. All right. But I really want you guys, I want to teach you guys everything that I can and share the knowledge, and, hopefully we can start to improve the quality of the maps and mods that are currently out there. So like I said, leave a like, leave a subscribe, all that stuff. And, recommend me to a friend, something like that. It helps out, helps everybody out. All right. So with that being said, I am Bauer Brown, and I will see you on the next one.